What's up, everybody? My name is THICC James, and welcome to the very first episode of the THICC James podcast, until I can come up with a better name for this. I've wanted to start a podcast for a really long time. I've wanted to just have a place where we can talk, discuss things, and talk about life and whatever. There's no real format specifically for this yet. I'm just trying to find my legs, but I've always liked long-form content. I've always loved podcasts. I get a lot out of them. I listen to them a lot. And so I figured I would like to just start sharing my perspective and really get other people's perspectives. So, this is just kind of the start of this, and I feel like probably for a little bit, we'll just kind of keep it short and sweet until we figure out what people want to like, or what I hear people like, or what they're telling me what they like. But yeah, I want to do some interviews with people that I know that are really, really dope, that are doing dope things, that are interesting people, that, are just either killing it or are interested or bring up interesting conversations. Because I remember growing up, my mom had a hair salon, and I always found it interesting listening to people in that hair salon, because they always had, it's just, to me, it was just crazy because you could really hear people's experiences. They talk really way more openly in a hair salon than they would a lot of other places about just real life things going on, and their actual thoughts about politics and religion and all kinds of stuff. And I always found that really, really fascinating. And so I want to do that in a different environment, in a different place. I want to do that in a place where people feel comfortable to be able to hold different opinions, or to be able to ask questions, or to be able to just explore things authentically, because I think that authenticity in life is the real sauce of where, understanding is found, where people get along. Even if they disagree, I just want to be able to cultivate that connectivity with others, because I just feel like it's so lacking in so many places and in so many areas. So that's kind of the goal. How we do that, I don't know, but that's kind of where we're at right now. Who knows? This could devolve into a whole debaucherous pot. No, it's probably not going to. But anyway, that's the plan for now. So thank you for joining me in this place. I thought, with everything going on, with this being the last day of 2020 that I'm filming this right now, that we could talk a little bit about insights in this year, and I could talk a little bit about some of my insights in this year and some of my experiences, some of the things that I'm taking away from this year and going into next year with, because I'm sure a lot of other people feel like this year has been absolute insanity. It has been for me. I can't even fathom that the start of this year, January of 2020 versus December of 2020, is the same year. I feel like we've lived 20 years in 1 year. And I don't know. I feel like I'm not even the same person in so many really, really good ways. But damn, really forges in the fire this year. And I think a lot of people felt like that too. And I'd be curious to hear how, anybody that's listening to this, how that has transformed, how their life has been transformed rather in this year. Because I just think about, started this year being super optimistic about everything going on, about, what this year would hold. And then it felt by the end of March, start of April, whatever, I felt like my juices just creatively and in life just stopped. It was hard, man. It was really difficult. And I feel like right now I'm really just getting back on that train again. I don't know if it's a season thing. I don't know if it's a momentum thing in life or whatever, but now I feel excited, more so than anything else now. I feel stoked to walk into the next year just with the tools that I've gotten this year, with the perspective I've gotten, and I don't know, man, I'm really excited. It's been interesting to see, my wife and I moved out here during the pandemic. And then, we've been back and forth to LA, and it's been crazy being here in Atlanta versus being in LA. I mean, I couldn't even fathom that, at the start of last year, that you would be telling me that a year later that we would be selling our place in LA and looking at houses in Atlanta, to go from I don't really know about what's going on, to like complete certainty that we're going to be staying here. And I don't know, I think that a lot of things in life, like big decisions and new things, happen kind of in a moment more so than over time. But I think that when they happen in a moment, it's often from a result of fostering those things over a longer period of time. And I think that that's kind of what happened here. I mean, with LA being in the place that it is and has been, I know there's a lot of people moving out of Los Angeles and going to the South. They've been going a lot of other places. But just with all the restrictions going on and everything, I think that creatively, I'm excited to see how the industry changes and how it gets democratized it already has been to a degree, but especially in 2021. I think that with everything going on online, the advent of things like Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, any other medium where you'd have music, SoundCloud, whatever, that it's really put the power into the people's hands, but made it so that labels and other people that are kind of distributing that content outside of that or promoting it, they have that thing. So there's a lot of business still going down, but I'm excited to see creatively what happens out of this. And also, with people moving back to different parts of the country, I think there's going to be lots of like scenes popping up and pockets of things happening. And I think Atlanta I think Atlanta and Nashville, especially, both of those cities in the South, have a whole lot to offer. And I do a lot of music, like I do sync licensing, I do a lot of hip hop and R&B, and I think that there's a lot of opportunities for that stuff down here. There always has been, but I think that with people moving out here, I think that there's going to be more what am I trying to say? More structure, more infrastructure in the South and in Atlanta, business infrastructure. And I'm excited to see some of that move away from Los Angeles because, love or hate LA, I love LA. I really do. I love Los Angeles. I love Atlanta. All these places. I mean, both of these places. Nashville. The thing about it is that there's a very established culture in LA. There's a very established culture as to how the music industry works. There's like their go-to people, and that's all well and good, and that's great. But in Atlanta, there's a new crew of people, and when you can inject new culture into things, you get new flavors, you get new spices, you get lots of things, you get new attitudes, you get new ways of being, you get new personalities and new leaders and people that really set the tone for what's happening. Because being out here, man, like, dudes, and I'm gonna get off of all this stuff, but like business wise, doing business in Atlanta is totally different than it is in Los Angeles, in my experience. And I could be wrong because I'm just a dude talking right now. But it seems like in Atlanta, they really want to make sure you're a solid human being first before you do business. And personally, I think that that's the smartest way to do business. It can lead to people's egos getting in the way, which is not helpful. But the fact is that when you are dealing with other people that are like rock solid individuals, it makes the whole business process easier. And I think that, having those insights now, like having new insights into like just who I am, that I've learned over the pandemic, I can really appreciate that a whole lot, which, I think I picked up a lot of that being outside of Los Angeles, because being there, it's almost like, hey, we do things a certain way. The expectation is this, A plus B equals C there. But like in Atlanta, it doesn't necessarily, it's not like that. But, I think that with all of that, this place has just, I feel more comfortable, I think, but not in like the I'm getting lazy comfortable. I feel like I have more space mentally, especially. And I think as a creative, man, like that I think is just, I didn't realize I was missing it until I moved out of LA. And then being here, I've got to explore so many things, like so many aspects of myself as a person. Just things I like, hobbies or whatever. I would have never had time for that in LA, or I would have never felt like I had time for it in LA. Like, I like working on my car. I like grilling. I like shooting guns. And a lot of these things I couldn't really either have time for or didn't really hold space for in LA. But being here, I can literally go walk outside, and instead of having to go down to like a subterranean garage to try and look at my car in the dark or work on it on the street while there's all kinds of people walking by, I literally can walk outside of the house and then go and do whatever I want on my car, and neighbors are friendly, or walk outside and go on my like porch and make burgers or whatever. And man, that for the creative space, like mentally, I just think that is so well, for me anyways, was just so lost. And having that now has just been so impactful to my creativity, to my just brain space, to the things that I see and the things that I value. It's really changed how I show up, I think, in life as well. Instead of being like, oh, I gotta hustle for this, or I gotta like rush in or like do whatever. Like having that space to be like, you know what, it's all good, just gonna relax, gonna chill out. It allows that like stew of creativity to kind of cook up. And instead of, microwaving your whole life, you got the opportunity to do that, but you also got the opportunity to put everything on the crock pot, or, like slow roast it or whatever. And that just brings out different flavors, brings out a different texture, brings out a different experience, makes a whole different meal. And that's something I think I really appreciate and respect now more than I did before. But I mean, aside from that, I think that this time has been I think a lot of people have been struggling, like just on like with mental health stuff, and the way that the pandemic has structured things for a lot of people. I know there's a lot of people with like addiction issues that have been suffering. A lot of people that have been, like they cooped up in the house, and like that's been really hard on them psychologically and stuff. And I think that when people are put under pressure, when anyone's put under pressure, what happens is a lot of things start to get revealed, and things come up to the surface that wouldn't have ordinarily been there. And like, don't get me wrong, this year has been hell for a lot of people, for many people, probably for most people. But my personal philosophy is that despite all that, despite all the crazy shit happening and just intensity, like I really try and see the silver lining in what is offered, right? Just like, what can we focus on that's going right? And I was listening to some people, I can't remember exactly what it was, but basically they're saying they, the questions that you're asking, right? Like you can either ask the question like, why is everything going wrong? Or ask why is this happening to me versus what is happening for me? And I think just that subtle perspective shift for me, like I started to really think about that a lot, to really like take that into perspective and just start to assess like what is happening for me in this moment, right? Because like I've had some experiences this year that just absolutely sucked. Anybody could have looked at it objectively and been like, wow, that sucks, like that's bad, that's a horrible situation. But I've decided to instead go to, hey, what is there in this experience that's for me? Like, what can I glean out of this that I wouldn't have gotten in any other way? Because the thing is, like, being put under pressure, it's going to make things get cracked. It's going to make things get exposed. Things are going to bubble up. I mean, if you crush something underwater, there's going to be air that escapes. There's going to be things that bubble up to the surface, right? Or even if you just think about it, like if you had a rock and you cracked it open, right? You don't know. I mean, you could, right? You could deduce this like that it would be a geode based on what it looks like. But what I'm saying is that when you crack it open, you really can see inside of that rock and what it's composed of, what, the layers and different things like that, or even just the makeup of the different types of, substances in it or whatever. And, I think that is a lot of what this time has been for me personally, is really discovering internally what there is there and being okay with the fact that there was no other way, really. I mean, there might have been, but it seemed like there was really no other way to get to it than to put pressure on it, than to, have to destroy certain things or parts of yourself or whatever. I mean, it's the same thing with like the ego death, right? Like, in order to really, live, you have to be able to die to your ego, because the ego creates this resistance. The ego creates this false idea, or, at least this incongruency, for lack of a better term, with your subconscious. And so when you live authentically, or at least you strive to live authentically, you start to bring those two things into alignment, where your subconscious and your conscious become more integrated. They become more obvious. They become more, it's easier to, I think, observe things that are happening subconsciously. But if your ego is constantly pushing against the ideas, desires, things going on in the subconscious, you never really know what's going on there. So I think that the pressure that has been cultivated this year has really made people aware that there is, things going on under the surface that wouldn't have come up otherwise. And so I try to honor that. I try to honor that process and honor that thing. And again, just remembering that, there may be a long process that comes up to it, but in a moment, that's when the things change. And to really honor that moment, and to and when I say honor that thing, I think that the idea of honoring things is something that gets really lost in this time, because I think that it's really hard for a lot of people to honor someone they don't agree with. I think that they really have a difficult time giving credit where credit is due to people and places and things that they are either offended by or that they're hurt by. Because the thing is, you can be hurt by something and still honor the parts of it that deserve respect. So for example, let's say that somebody commented on your weight, right? And they said that you were fat or whatever. That is a shitty thing to do, right? That's pretty agreeable. That to do that is rude. I mean, the way that they say it is different. They could say it in a way that's telling you something, or they could at least try to, but let's just say that they said it in a way that was really shitty and rude. Well, you can still honor that by just accepting the feedback without any level of emotion, or at least putting your emotions to the side to table it for a minute, right? And just ask yourself a simple question of, is this true or not? And why? So, let's say you actually are overweight and somebody said something to you that you were overweight, but they said it really rude. You can then say, hey, maybe they had a point in saying this, even if their intentions were terrible, that am I overweight? Because if I am, or I'm living a very unhealthy lifestyle, and somebody brings that up to you, you can honor that information by simply just holding it in one hand and holding their opinion in the other, but asking these questions and being like, okay, well, maybe this is valid information coming from a really bad source. So then to honor that is to just take it for the value that it offers to you in that moment, and say, hey, okay, maybe I need to change some things about myself. Maybe I need to do some research, this, that, and the other. And I had that experience, actually. I had that experience several years ago, where somebody said something to me that was extremely rude, extremely shitty, and called me fat. And, that for me put me on a place where I was like, you know what? But I know the person that I am is somebody that wants to better myself. So I started looking into options, started looking into, so I basically, long story short, discovered, because I had read The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, I discovered the 4-Hour Body. And so I started reading that and I was like, I can do this. So I started implementing that. And over time, I lost 40 pounds by doing the 4-hour body. Like, so it still hurt my feelings, the thing that somebody said, but I enacted it in a way that was powerful to me. I enacted it by being honest with myself and saying, I do need to lose weight. I do need to change my lifestyle habits. And I did, and I got the results from it. And now, instead of being focused on the things that they said that were negative or rude or whatever, I reap the benefits of having lost weight, of having lived a healthier lifestyle. I reap the benefits by honoring that which was positive. So, and I think that that's really hard to do for a lot of people, and I understand that. But my point with a lot of that is to say that despite the fact that this year has been really hard, it's been really difficult, it's been really, stressful, that I want to honor the parts of this year that have been good. And for me, like, I realized a lot of things about myself that I would have never seen any other way. I think that the mirror got held up to me really, really harshly. And I had to look at myself and be like, I don't like that person. And one other thing I think I want to say about that too is that it's just really hard when you, like, people have a difficult time. I think a lot of people have a difficult time, myself included, divorcing the idea of identity and behavior. And I think that that's why a lot of people cultivate this victim narrative, because we all do. We all have this victim narrative that operates in the background. And you might not think so. You might think like, oh, I'm not a victim, I'm strong. Or I'm not a victim because, I got over this. Or I'm not a victim because I'm a survivor, or like whatever. And that's fine. But the fact is we all have this victim narrative in some capacity that we, exude. And it may look pretty innocuous for a lot of people, but I'll give you an example. For me, this victim narrative has come forth in the fact that I've made it so that I would not be on social media a lot. Why? Because it's easier for me to disappoint myself by not being transparent, by not being vulnerable, by not being accessible than it is to face the rejection of somebody else, than to possibly, not even truthfully, get rejected by somebody else. And so I created this victim narrative subconsciously that, I don't need to do that. I don't need that to be successful. I don't want to do that. I want to be, this person, that's alone, or like nobody knows or whatever. But it comes from a place of victimizing yourself because you don't want to be known. You don't want to be seen. You don't want to be expressed because you may be afraid of, the backlash. You may be afraid of who you are. You might not know who you are. You might not really want to face who you truly are because that might be painful. So I can't really remember what I was saying about the victim narrative, but I really, strongly desire to not have that be an aspect in my life, and working hard against that. And I think that one of the biggest ways that you do that, thus far in my level of understanding, right, is to be authentic, is to be truthful. And I don't think that it's, necessarily a wise idea to be authentic about everything around everyone, because you can be an open book to everyone, but you're going to run into people that are either going to use that against you, that are going to be malicious, that are going to be rude, that are going to be uncaring, that are going to be manipulative, and that's not a wise idea. But being transparent gives people the opportunity to relate with you, to be open with you. And there's certain places where that's powerful, and certain places where you might not want to do that. Excuse me. Let me drink this H2O. So yeah. But it is powerful in being authentic. And when people are authentic, that's when they really win, I think. They'll because they're undeniable. Like, it's really hard for you to not connect with somebody that's being authentic, because deep down that person is reflecting back to you something that exudes a real person, or at least looks like it, or you can relate with that person. And that's the whole thing, is like human connection. Human connection is so important especially in a time like this, because a lot of people are cut off from human connection because of the fact that they can't gather with other people. They can't, they can't see friends, they can't see family, or they're at least told not to, or they're socially judged for doing that or taking place in that, which I understand both sides of that point. But really the point is that connection, human connection, is really, really important and missing. And the best way to have that, I think, is through authenticity. The risk is that when you're authentic, you put yourself out there, and again, don't be authentic in that way with everybody, because we're all wearing masks at different points in time, and we all let the authenticity come out, right? But what I'm saying is that authenticity is undeniable, even if you don't agree with it or you don't like it. And it creates a connection of some sort, even if that connection is hatred, even if that connection is, something. But it's very hard to be apathetic towards somebody, fully anyway, that is being truthful, or at least seemingly truthful. So that's kind of been my strive, is to be authentic with people, and just at this point I'm okay taking the risks of having people not like me, because the fact is people don't like me anyway, and people like me. People don't like you, and people also like you. The idea isn't to be loved by everyone or adored or accepted by everyone. I know that that's some people's desire. That's a huge pain point, because you can't make everyone happy. You can't be something to everyone. A facet of you can maybe be relevant to most people, if you play the game of, trying to win people, right? But there's going to be things that I believe that other people aren't, and vice versa. And the thing is, most of the times when people are adored by everyone, it's because you either don't know the full picture of them, or the things that they're exuding are qualities that are, honorable to everyone. Being like, caring for others, being charitable, being compassionate towards people, being strong in utilizing that for good, being powerful and yielding that power in a really honorable or helpful or kind way, or, something that creates connection with people. But you're going to get hated either way from somebody. Like somebody that's really, I'm sure that there's somebody out there that hates Bob Ross because of something like his haircut, or his fashion sense, or his voice, or anything, or his painting style. But the fact is that the legacy that Bob Ross leaves is so much greater than the hatred that one human, or however many, exude towards him. And who is the most relevant here is somebody that has made an impact, and somebody that is not afraid to be themselves, because that's where they're going to leave impact in the world, Otherwise, I think, and I could be totally wrong, right? I'm okay with being wrong. I've been wrong a lot. I'll be wrong again if I am. But I think that, people that are unafraid to be themselves are so attractive to other people, because that's something that a lot of people cannot do. They cannot fully be themselves, and so they admire people that can be themselves, even if they don't realize it, because they wish that they could do the same thing. And I the other thing I was going to say is that the people that you can tell are manufactured, their body language is manufactured, their words are manufactured, their expressions are, everything is like a game. You can tell it, and it feels like those people are like a shell of a human. They're like the people, like, when people see actors or politicians or whatever that are clearly doing this, like they got the pace down, they got the language down, they got the cue down, where they're like, oh, okay, well, now I'm gonna fake cry here, or I'm gonna drive this point home here, or this is my this, I'm gonna say this, that, or whatever, or they're gonna laugh at their jokes, or whatever. It could be anything. But those people are hard to relate with on the level that goes deeper than just like you might think that they're like, oh, cool, like they're accessible in the fact that like it's flimsy. It's like a cardboard cutout of a human being. Like you can see them, it's a representation of a human, but it's not a real human. It's not a human that you can have a conversation back and forth with, a human that you can touch, a human that you can bounce something off of, or that, you know, somebody that responds back. It's just like, it's a veneer. It's just like like I said, a cardboard cutout of a human. And that you can try and trick yourself into thinking that that's a real person, but you know deep down that that's not really a human being. But if a bunch of people come up to that cardboard cutout and they're like, oh wow, that almost feels like, you know, maybe you're doing something wrong. But if my words mean anything, I just want to, you know, assure other people and anybody listening that, you know, choosing to be an authentic version of yourself is going to be a painful experience. It's going to hurt. You're going to get rejected. You're going to get people that hate you. You're going to be shit on. But what is the upside? The upside is that you, I think, gain more peace about yourself. And obviously, like, you can be authentically a shitty person, right? But the idea of being authentic is not to stop at just being like, oh, I'm real, because that's not real. What's real is taking an inventory of yourself. What's real is asking yourself what the impact is that you're leaving. What's real is seeking out how you are affecting other people, and asking if that's the behavior that you want, you know, put down to, like, reflected back to yourself. What's real is putting yourself in other people's positions and asking the question of whether you like the experience that you're giving to them. Those are all real things. And those are the things that are really hard to face, because they come with really heavy consequences. And I think that consequences are something that, as a culture, we've shied away from. I think that a lot of people try to do the most that they can to not face the consequences of their actions, not knowing that facing the consequences of your actions is probably the greatest feedback that you could possibly have. And it sucks. It really sucks. Because a lot of times, like, consequences can be good or bad, right? Consequences can, like, here's just an example off the top of my head. You go the speed limit, right? The consequence is you don't get a ticket, or at least you don't get pulled over for speeding, because you're following the law. You know, whether you agree with it or not, that's a consequence of your actions. Now, if you decide to speed all the time, a consequence that you probably face is getting a speeding ticket. But the question you ask is, are you willing to pay that price, right? And we do that all the time in life. But a lot of times people don't even think about the consequences. So you can't get mad if you get stopped by the police if you're going 80 in a 55 and they give you a speeding ticket, or they give you, you know, they want to suspend your license. Like, if you have thought this through and been like, I will pay that consequence, that's fine with me, because the upside is I get to drive as fast as I want and I can pay for the speeding tickets. That's well within your right? But if you have not thought the consequences through, you're going to be upset because you didn't really think about the cost of your actions. And I think that's what a lot of us do, myself included, is not really think about the cost of our actions. And that's been one of the things that I've really taken away from this year, is really looking at the cost of my actions and asking myself whether I want to suffer the consequences of that. Be those healthy or unhealthy, be those positive or negative, you know? What do I gain out of this? What cost, and for me to serve my pride, what am I getting out of that? What am I gaining? You know, am I getting validation? Am I getting comfort? Am I placating myself? Or am I eating the spiritual vegetables that taste disgusting right now, but in 5 weeks are gonna be delicious, right? And those are the things that I've kind of got a big focus on now, and going into this coming year. And I want to keep that. I want to retain that, and I want to cultivate that. And one of the things that I've been thinking about is, like, accountability. And I know I was listening to somebody, I can't even remember, but somebody was basically talking about, like, accountability and how, like, that's kind of a cop-out, or, like, it's weak. Not weak as in the person, but it's like it's a weak concept. And I understand why somebody would think that, because it almost feels like you're not taking responsibility for yourself. But on the other side, I feel like accountability is probably the most extreme thing that you could do to take accountability to take responsibility for yourself, because you're essentially saying, I am untrustworthy with my own self and I need somebody else to make sure that I keep my word. And I think that is a very difficult realization and a very difficult a conclusion to come to realize that you yourself are untrustworthy. Like, I'm guiding this ship, but I am such a bad captain that I can't even do it myself, right? But you surround yourself with other people to cultivate that for yourself, and to give yourself vision that you wouldn't have. And I think that's a place of strength that I personally need to do more of. I want to explore that more. I want to be that person that is, creating accountability in different areas of my life, like accountability in seeking out mentorship, like accountability in getting all the things done that I said I'm going to do, accountability in making sure that my marriage is the priority in my life that it should be, accountability in making sure that my friendships are the priorities that they should be in my life, accountability and making sure that my hobbies are my hobbies and my job is my job, and that everything that I want in life, that I'm seeking to give that, that the accountability and holding up the mirror to myself and realizing that wherever I go, there I am, not to trick myself into thinking that the person that is going to show up is this ideal version of myself, because that's never the person that shows up. We think that the ideal person shows up to every situation, and most of the time people can see through the mask that you put on. It's like, literally, we think that we got a Halloween mask on and we got one of those like PPE plastic visors on, and we're making faces behind it, and we think like people can't see that because we got the mask on, so we're like, oh, you can't see my face. No, everybody can see through that veneer really, really easily. It might take people longer if you've gotten really good at manipulating other people or manipulating your own self into thinking that or whatever, but that's the truth. I mean, a lot of people can see through you more so than you can see to yourself. And that's why it's really important to have other people checking in with you, and to have other people that are creating that environment for you, or at least reaching out to other people to create that environment in yourself, So, I mean, that was just a lot of, maybe that was just kind of a brain dump or whatever. There was really no theme, I guess. And I don't know how much I really talked about 2020. Okay, so let me recap this. Let me recap this, because a lot of those things, let me back up 1 second. I'll put a bow on this, right? So a lot of those things that I said are insights that to me became a lot more clear in 2020. They became more of a center stage thing. Really, I would say, like honoring others, committing to things, and contrary action, and making sure that the right thing is the right thing. Not right as in the objective right or wrong, but like the thing that is the most beneficial in the moment is most beneficial. The thing that is most beneficial in the moment is the thing that I'm putting my energy into. That could mean that right now I need to work, or right now I need to have this conversation and help somebody out. There is no right or wrong there, but the right thing is what is going to cultivate the most significance in my life, in their life, and what is, truly going to serve others, because serving others is the best way, I think, to be able to serve yourself, because when you serve others, it comes back around to you. And I think that that's really difficult in a time like this year, because so much of what we're doing has been, it's very easy to slip into a place of self-service. Because if you're in survival mode, you're not thinking about thriving. You're thinking about, how do I get through to the next day? And thriving is cultivating the tribe around you that helps everyone together. You don't survive, you can survive on your own in that capacity, but it doesn't really create a life. It just creates living. You've lived to the next day, but you haven't cultivated a life. And so a lot of the things that have happened this year have been, just things that have stretched us, things that have brought us to limits that we might not have known otherwise, things that we would have not experienced otherwise through being put under pressure, things that are, I think isolating ourselves and coming to different conclusions, or understanding things about ourselves that we would have never known any other way. Discovering new interests, discovering new hobbies and stuff. And so this is what I desire in myself and in others to see, is to take this gigantic stew of craziness that this life was, and just pick out the pieces that you like. Like, let's say we got this vegetable stew and you hate lentils and cabbage and onions, but you like the potatoes in there, right? Just pick out the potatoes and hold on to those, because now you like potatoes. But the rest of it you throw away if it's not good, if it's not helpful, rather, and just let it go. And now if you wouldn't have got potatoes any other way, hey man, you got potatoes now. And that's kind of what I kind of am vibing on. That's kind of what my wavelength is. And so I'd be curious to see what you guys think and what you have to say about it. But that's just that's kind of where I'm at, And so maybe my opinions will be different next week, next year, next 10 years. I know that I have, as a person, have changed drastically over the last decade of my life. Over the last 5 years of my life, over this last 1 year of my life. And I guess if I could do one thing at this point, is just to encourage you to have self-discovery, to just be okay with where you're at, the process where you're at, and who you are now, and not judge who you are now against who you don't know you will be in the future, or who you were before. Because the thing is, the only person you are really is who you are right now. The past version of you is gone. That's not you anymore. It was you, but it's not you now. You can't do anything about the past. You can't do anything about the future. You can only do things about what is right now. So I would just say, be cool with who you are. Understand who you are. Get some understanding around who you are and why you do what you do, and what you want to do and what you don't want to do, and just start putting different practices in motion if you want to be a different person, and cultivate and water the things that you do like, so that those can continue to grow. But that's just the place I'm on right now, man. But anyway, I know this is probably kind of heavy. But, to me, this is a casual Tuesday. Well, it's Thursday, but it's a casual Thursday for me. This is the type of stuff that I'm thinking about all the time. So thank you for listening. I'm happy that anybody that listened to this is listening to this. And if you want to hear more of me blabbering about stuff, you got anything that you really want to ask about, or anything that you are thinking about, or just topics of conversation you think are good, like, hit me up. I'll put in my social media info, like Instagram, I'm at THICC James Beats, Twitter, I'm at THICC James Beats, and I'm trying to be better about doing all the stuff on social. But yeah, hit me up, and I'll put more of the stuff in any of the show notes that I have for wherever I'm posting this. And be good to yourself. And have a happy new year.